Welcome to This Explainer. Okay, today we are unpacking a topic that affects hundreds of thousands of families every single year, but honestly, it still remains wrapped in a lot of confusion. South Carolina school attendance laws. You see, when a student misses school, it isn't just a blank spot in a teacher's gradebook. It actually triggers a very specific legal and administrative chain of events. So today, we're going to demystify this entire escalation arc. We'll define exactly when a simple absence turns into legal truancy, and most importantly, how you can course correct before things ever end up in a courtroom.
All right, let's dive into our roadmap for today. We're covering 1. The core attendance rules, 2. Defining an absence, 3. Crossing the truancy threshold, 4. Truancy versus chronic absenteeism, 5. When the court steps in, and 6. Staying on track. Let's get started.
Starting off with Section 1, the core attendance rules, setting the baseline. Now, this isn't just some casual school policy we're talking about, it's actual state law. Kids are required to be in an approved public, private, or kindergarten program. And that compulsory clock? It starts the year a child turns 5 before September 1st. So yeah, you literally can't be a kindergarten dropout in South Carolina. And he doesn't just stop after middle school. This legal expectation stays firmly in place every single day until a student turns 17 or graduates.
But hey, before we get into the really heavy stuff, I want to emphasize something absolutely crucial. South Carolina's system is built around intervention, documentation, and communication. It is not out to punish you immediately. If you're a parent stressing over a sudden flu or a family emergency, take a deep breath. Schools want to keep kids in the classroom, not drag your family into court. The laws are there to ensure consistency for sure, but the very first steps are entirely focused on getting you support. Moving right along to Section 2, defining an absence and the 50% rule.
You know, you might think an absence only really counts if a student misses the entire school day, right? From the morning bell all the way to afternoon dismissal. But actually, under state guidance, the absolute threshold is 50%. A student is considered absent the moment they miss at least half of the instructional day. So if you check your child out early for a dentist appointment and they end up missing more than half the day's instruction, that officially logs as a full absence in the state's tracking system.
Which brings us to Section 3, crossing the truancy threshold when absences escalate.
Okay, so this is where we cross from just general absences into actual legal territory. The big warning number here is 3. A student between 6 and 17 is officially considered truant if they have 3 consecutive unexcused absences. Now, notice I said unexcused. Out sick for 3 days with a doctor's note? Totally fine, that's excused. It doesn't count toward truancy. But 3 unexcused absences in a row, you have officially crossed the line. But wait, it's not just consecutive days you need to watch out for. The number 5 is just as important. A total of 5 or more unexcused absences at any point during the entire school year also triggers this legal truancy threshold. So think about it. 1 day missed in September, 2 in November, and 2 in February. That hits the total. And once that happens, the school is legally required by state regulations to intervene.
Next up is Section 4, truancy versus chronic absenteeism, a crucial difference.
Now, what's really interesting about this slide is how often families and even educators get tripped up here. These two terms are not interchangeable. Truancy is strictly a legal status, and it's based solely on full-day, unexcused absences. Chronic absenteeism, though, that is a much broader measure designed to track lost instructional time. It casts a huge net. It counts all absences. We're talking unexcused ones, excused medical days, and even out-of-school suspensions. So a student can absolutely be chronically absent without ever actually being legally truant. To really put chronic absenteeism into perspective, the state defines it as missing 10% or more of the enrollment period. For a full academic year, that equals just 18 days. If a student misses 18 days of instruction for literally any reason at all, they get labeled chronically absent. Schools monitor this like a hawk because it is a massive red flag for a kid's academic progress, and it ties directly into the school's federal accountability.
All right, into Section 5, when the court steps in, the legal escalation.
So what happens when those early supports just aren't working? Well, the situation escalates step by step. Step 1 is the intervention plan, which is where the school contacts the family to set up counseling or monitoring. If that fails, we move to Step 2, and the student is labeled a habitual truant. Then the escalation continues to Step 3, where an initial truancy petition is actually filed with the family court. And finally, if those court orders are ignored, we hit Step 4, chronic truant. Let's zoom in on that habitual truant label for a second. South Carolina defines this specifically as a kid between 12 and 17 who doesn't follow the school's intervention plan and racks up 2 or more additional unexcused absences. It's at this very specific stage that the school can file a petition with the court. And they can't just point fingers either. They have to actually prove to the judge that they tried to intervene by providing documented proof of the family's non-compliance. Which brings us to the ultimate climax of this whole legal journey: chronic truant. If a student is still missing school even after a judge has explicitly ordered them to attend, the state notes this can lead to a formal contempt petition. Now, schools are trying multiple layers of support to avoid this exact moment, but if those unexcused absences just keep mounting up, the court has the authority to step in with severe legal consequences for contempt. Finally, Section 6, staying on track, de-escalation and early intervention. Okay, let's take a breath and step away from the courtroom for a minute, because as a family, you have total agency here. Let's remember why this actually matters beyond just avoiding legal trouble. Repeated absences mean your kid is missing out. Students can really quickly fall behind in reading comprehension, math concepts, and crucial social development with their peers. Building a rock-solid habit of showing up every day is just absolutely essential, especially as those academic demands start ramping up in middle and high school. So, how do we navigate all of this safely? Honestly, it comes down to a few very actionable tips, straight from state guidance. First, only keep your child home when it's genuinely necessary, and tell the school right away. Second, hoard those medical notes. Never just assume a quick phone call makes an absence excused. If the school reaches out to you, respond immediately. Or, better yet, request a meeting yourself if you feel like a pattern is starting. That early communication and good faith cooperation, that is your absolute best shield to prevent a simple misunderstanding from snowballing into a legal nightmare.
It is so easy to just see the morning school bell as, a daily routine. But in South Carolina, it is a heavily tracked, legally binding duty. So I want to leave you with this question. Is your family treating attendance as just a casual expectation, or as the serious educational priority and legal responsibility that the state demands? If you're ever in doubt, just call your school, ask for clarification, and keep those lines of communication wide open. Thank you so much for joining me on this explainer today, and we will see you next time as we keep breaking down the systems that shape our world.